Thank you very much. One of many tonight. Let's have a roll call.
Commissioner Blanco,
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Here.
Commissioner Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Seifert is out. Chair Dickerson.
Here. If everyone had a chance to take a look at the March 16th minutes, if anybody has any comments or alterations, please let us know. Otherwise, we need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for March 16th,
Can we get a
2022.
second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstention?
One abstention and no objections. We'll let that be shown. Public comment period. Each member of the audience may address the commission on any subject within the commission's business. Each member of the audience and each subject is limited discussion of 3 minutes or is otherwise directed by the chair. This is for items that are not already on the agenda. I believe that we also have some comments from staff on how to pipe in versus Zoom. Frank?
Thank you, Chair. For members of the audience and attendees who are watching via Zoom, if you wish to comment on an agenda item, please use the raised hand icon on the Zoom platform. Once you are recognized, you will then be unmuted and allowed to comment on the business at hand in the order received. Maximum comment time is 3 minutes or as otherwise directed by the chair. If you are calling in via a cell phone or a telephone and wish to be acknowledged, please raise your hand by dialing *9 and identify yourself when unmuted.
That was lovely. Thank you very much, Frank. Item number 1, continued item, Central Coast Truck Center electric fence conditional use permit at 1400 West Stoll Road. Can we hear from staff?
Excuse me,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. Did we call for public comment?
I think I did, yeah.
Oh.
But
And-
we can fit.
I know we gave the
can
instructions.
call.
I didn't know if we
Sure.
looked or if we asked.
Is there any public comment from anybody out in the audience? No, I see none, all right. How
And
about from the
Chair,
Zoom world?
members of the commission, there are no outside attendees on Zoom.
Okay, thank you
currently.
very much. Good enough? You got it. Going back to number 1, as stated. Let's hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is
Sorry to interrupt again. This is Heather Wood. I'm Assistant City Attorney. I have a financial conflict of interest on this item. My husband, the applicant is a source of income to my husband, so I'm going to recuse myself, and I'll be back after the item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're free flying, baby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Carol Zuzenheny. I'm the project planner presenting the request from Central Coast Truck Center for an electric fence. They are located at 1400 West Stoll Road. This is a request for a recently constructed truck center, which was reviewed by your commission at the end of 2019 to install an 8 to 10 foot tall perimeter electric security fence. Fences taller than 6 feet require approval by the zoning administrator, and fences topped with barbed wire or similar sharp material or electric material requires approval through a conditional use permit based on findings of special needs for safety or security. Since the Planning Commission recently reviewed the project and due to the visibility from Stoll Road, the application has been referred to your commission for review and approval. The project is located at the intersection of Stoll Road and Hanson Way. It is a roughly triangular shaped lot. The railroad goes down from south to north along the eastern side of the property. It's a 9-acre site, and the Santa Barbara County is directly across Stoll Road over here with the agricultural operations. Surrounding uses are industrial and agriculture. As a background, the California Truck Center is a 40,000 square foot facility for commercial vehicle sales, part sales, and repair. Display of vehicles for sale are along the northeast side of the parking lot over here. There are also 2 retention basins on each of these corners here. The request is intended to address trespass, theft, and vandalism issues that have been reported to occur on a regular basis. The applicant from Amarok Fence and the owner of Central Coast Truck Center are here and can speak more to the special need for safety and security in their presentation after staff concludes ours. So this is a view of the site plan and an aerial just for reference. The proposed 10-foot tall electrified fence would be installed on the interior of the existing wrought iron and chain link fencing. An 8-foot tall fence is proposed along the Stoll Road frontage, and then a 10-foot tall fence would be proposed along the interior perimeters of the chain link fence to the rear and sides of the property. There is landscaping in the public landscape area along Stoll Road as well. The next slide will show elevations of the higher 10-foot tall security system. One thing to note is that the security system is proposed to be placed at least half a foot away from the exterior fence to prevent any casual person from inadvertently interacting with the system. And so this is a view of the site looking from Stoll Road. Number one is at the eastern corner here, looking onto the site from the east towards the west. And then this is one of the gates, and then another couple of site photos looking to the east. So there's existing landscaping that is maturing. This is a new project, like I mentioned previously. So this is the top image is a schematic drawing of the fence materials. The bottom image is a similar system that's been installed by Amarok and a different trucking center in Northern California. The security system itself is constructed from thin wires and 2 types of support poles. So shown here are the fiberglass poles, and then these thicker poles are shown right here on the bottom part of the screen. These fiberglass poles are supports for the fence and keeping that tension up. The thicker poles are 4-inch diameter. They're steel, and then the thinner ones are fiberglass. Fences are equipped with warning signs and a fire department Knox box to shut the system down in case of emergency for first responders. A relatively fine steel mesh, 1 inch by 1 inch, is proposed on the wrought iron fence along the street for some extra separation to keep casual passersby from reaching through. The idea is that anyone that would come in contact with the fence would clearly be trespassing by getting through the exterior fence and ignoring the warning signs. You can see some small ones here. The applicant may have some other photos that can more clearly show those. Here it is on the schematic. Staff reviewed other similar security systems in different California cities, and it appears that the most visible component of the system is those thicker diameter poles and the control boxes over here. The rest are intended to blend into the background, so to speak. And the photo below shows the most visible scenario with the gate and the solar panels here. One thing to note is that this system is battery powered. It is not hooked up to the grid. So here are a couple other photo examples with the thicker steel poles and then the thinner fiberglass poles with those warning signs. And here's some more fiberglass poles. It's pretty hard to see if you're not looking for it. With that, staff recommends the Planning Commission by motion approve conditional use permit U 2021-0016 as conditioned. Staff is available for questions, as is the owner and the applicant.
Thank you, Carol. Before we get to asking any questions, I'd like to ask commissioners for any disclosure on communication with the applicant. Is there any communication? No?
None for me.
Okay, seeing none. Questions for staff? Questions?
Yeah, I had, thank you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
I did have one question, Carol. I think, maybe I misheard, but I think you said the separation between the wrought iron fence and this fence was 6 inches? Or did I mishear that? The plans that I saw said 4 foot 8 inches. So I don't know.
So it says 4 inches to 8 inch minimum.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay. Yep, thank you. I think I read that as 4 foot 8. Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Carol, are there other electrical fences around the city? I mean, is this unique, or there are quite a few of them here and there?
Yes, thanks you, Chair Dickerson. There are a couple. They've been approved by the zoning administrator, outlined in Title 1235. So they haven't risen to the level of this commission prior, but there are some. There's a few. One on at the Penske truck rental location on Betaravia, and then there's a few other in several industrial zones across the city.
I see. Thank you. Any further questions? No? Well, let's go ahead and hear from the applicant then. If you can state your name and address for the record, we'd appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Pete Knecko, and I'm from Amarok, and here on behalf of Central Coast Truck Center. My address is 2781 Macon Drive, Sacramento, California. So first of all, Chair Dickerson, members of the commission, thank you for this opportunity. In discussing this with Carol, I thought this would be a good opportunity to basically just kind of give you a quick overview, which truthfully, Carol's done such a very good job, but I'm just going to kind of touch on maybe a little more technical details, so it will hopefully kind of answer any questions that you may have, or may resolve any questions you may have. So as we take a look at this system, I just want you to understand kind of what's going to be proposed here for Central Coast Truck Center. So next slide, please. I'm not going to dive into this, but we know certainly our system is not new. We're known nationwide. We have more than 500 installations, across California, as well as a number here within the city of Santa Maria. But there's basically 4 functions to the system. I know the kind of the electrified security fence component gets kind of all the focus, but truthfully, this is a much more sophisticated system, which I'm going to lay out here in the next minute or so. But there's 4 elements there. There's the deterrence element, defense, detection, as well as deployment. So next slide, please. But before we can go into those details, this is just a sampling or example of the types of businesses that would request this type of security system. If you look at all those businesses or those types of industries, the commonality amongst all of them is they are bound to storing their valuable assets in an outdoor yard. They do not have the luxury of pulling all their equipment, tools, vehicles inside of a secured facility. They're obviously stored in an outdoor yard. Equipment rental, in the case of Central Coast Truck Center, actual trucks themselves and RVs, but it spans a few other industries as well. So I just wanted to kind of give you just a perspective. This type of security system is absolutely, per state law, is prohibited within residential areas or for residential purposes. And certainly the intent is not to, install around retail centers. Again, think of the scenario where, these types of businesses have to store their valuable assets in an outdoor yard. Okay, next slide, please. So in this particular instance with Central Coast Truck Center, the challenges they have had is they have not only criminals breaching the property, into the property over the top, but they actually will cut through the fence. So existing fencing, non-electrified fencing, is not an impediment, unfortunately, to the criminals that want to get inside the facility. They'll dig under, they'll cut at the bottom, the top, and they'll find their way in, unfortunately. And this is just not unique to chain link fencing. Believe it or not, wrought iron fencing is quicker and easier to get into a property because there's the weak tack welds that are often used for wrought iron fencing. But that bottom right photo, that's basically just to show that, Central Coast Truck Center, they have employed already a number of security measures that just are not working. They have existing fencing with barbed wire. They do have surveillance cameras. They have lot lighting, those light standards there, it's well lit. And still, the criminals don't care. So that's why they're requesting the proposed security system. Okay, next slide. So now I'm going to kind of just go into the quick kind of technical details just to provide you some comfort with respect to kind of how it works as well as even the safety aspects. But again, that just kind of spans the spectrum of this technology. Again, highly sophisticated. The difference between this system and other types of security systems is this system is proactive. There's a strong deterrent element built in, whereas cameras and other forms of security, infrared, they're all reactive, meaning someone is already on the property before they're detected, and that's a problem. This The intent of this system is to like not even incur, and basically just stop a criminal in their thought process of even trying to enter this facility. Okay, next slide, please. So here's the basic components. And the key thing is, look at the top left. There's an alarm. Basically, this is an alarm system. It's more than just an electric fence. There's an integral alarm system built into it. So the best way to describe this is it utilizes the electric fence as the circuit. So if you think of your home, if you have an alarm in your homes, you have door contacts and window contacts. All that is one continuous loop. Obviously, when you set the alarm, if a criminal were to lift the window or push through the door, breaking the contact, it basically triggers the alarm. The same thing happens with this type of system, is it utilizes the pulsed electricity to detect whether there's a low voltage return or a no voltage return, which means that the criminal either, threw cardboard or a tarp over the top, or maybe use some type of cutters to actually cut the electrified security fence. So people will often ask, well, okay, what's to say if they can't come with insulated gloves and cut it? Well, in this instance, this is the beauty of the system, is it actually detects entry immediately. And then the other element is it's monitored. So through the cellular network, it will then call a monitoring operator who then identifies that there's a potential breach on the property. And unfortunately, it'll be Mr. Ruskoff getting the call at 2 a.m. in the morning from the operator saying, we've detected a potential breach on the property. Please verify that a crime is in progress prior to requesting deployment of police services. So the system it's robust. It's highly sophisticated. And I think one of the main things why law enforcement appreciates this about this type of technology is the fact that it requires verification. The operator will not request deployment of law enforcement services until the business verifies that, yes, there's something going on the property. Hence, they have surveillance cameras, and they can certainly see, if there is some type of criminal activity occurring. And law enforcement appreciates responding to an actual crime in progress as opposed to just going to a property to go look around. As we all know, resources are very limited right now in the law enforcement community, and certainly they appreciate, kind of more accurate, calls for service. Other things to note here regarding the componentry, it is solely powered by a 12-volt DC battery. It's not connected to mains power. That is number one for safety, and number two, it's also for security, meaning if the grid accidentally goes down or bad guys cut the main power, the system doesn't go down. It's standalone, and it's perpetually recharged by a solar panel on the interior of the property. So, and there's a few other components there, the Energizer and obviously the emergency shut-off, which is required per your own municipal code to ensure that first responders can turn off the system before entering into the property. Okay, next slide. Okay, just a tad bit deeper and just kind of the technical aspects. First of all, there's warning signage every 30 linear feet. That is a requirement per state code. And then also consider too that just keep in mind this system is always installed behind and on the interior of an existing perimeter fence, non-electrified perimeter fence. So it's a fence inside of a fence. So that means no one can just inadvertently walk up and accidentally touch it. The system will be armed, obviously, only when the facility is closed. Obviously, they would not have it operating when the gates are all open and customers have access to the property. It is intended for, basically after hours security. Now, it's pulse frequency. So now we're kind of getting into actually your own municipal code as well as the state code. So your code and the state code, and even in the international standard, they all are in alignment, which is important. That's number one for safety. So the practical way to explain this is every 1.3 seconds, the energizer of the system will send a less than a millisecond pulse of electricity through the fence, okay? So the key phrase is to understand this is not continuous current. That is not allowed per state law. It's not allowed by the IEC, which I'll explain who they are in a minute here. But it's the pulse nature, the very short duration pulse is what makes this medically safe and safe for utilization, obviously, within urban environments. But again, every 1.3 seconds, that's when it sends that less than a millisecond pulse of charge through the actual system itself. The type of reaction you get, and unfortunately, I've had to demonstrate it before. Certain cities have a question, how does this feel? What's going to happen? It is akin to getting a good hard static shock. It's the same, similar duration. It's the same reaction. You pop, and you're just like, ooh, that stung. Don't want to do it again. So that is the pulse nature is what makes it medically safe. So let's go ahead and move on kind of to the next slide. Here, this just confirms state of California has recognized that this type of security complies with the state code for alarm systems. There's our alarm company operator license. Again, it's monitored, and obviously there's a deployment element built into it as part of the process of a potential breach. Okay, next slide. Okay, I won't belabor this. This is, again, just saying it's 12-volt DC powered, perpetually recharged by a solar panel. We always like to say that we went green well before green was cool. We've been doing this for almost 4 decades now. So, okay, next slide. Real quick, these are not arbitrary standards, and certainly your municipal code did not just make up its own standards for safety. It complies, the parent standard is the IEC. IEC, International Electrotechnical Commission Standard, long number, a lot of numbers, 60335-2-76. That is referenced in your own municipal code, and that is what specifies that operation, meaning the pulsed current must be greater than 1 hertz frequency, 1.3 seconds between pulses. That is all specified within the IEC. And then obviously it's trickled down all the way through national standards and state standards, ANSI, ASTM, including our own state civil code. And then obviously Santa Maria Municipal Code has also adopted the IEC standard. So, okay, next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, as Carol had mentioned earlier, that there is a shut-off switch required, for emergency responders. And okay, next slide. Let's kind of shift gears here. So, 10-foot design, that is the ideal, and that's what's being proposed along the rear and the sides of a Central Coast Truck Center. And that is, I think that cute cartoon depiction kind of explains why there must be additional height on the interior electric fence as opposed to the same height. It would be too easy to scale if they're equal height. But certainly do appreciate working with staff, along the frontage. And what we're proposing is just 2 feet above the existing fence, which will still provide the security necessary for the site, as well as address any, concerns about aesthetics. Speaking of aesthetics, next slide, please. We'll just kind of jump right into it. I'll show you some samples. Next slide, we did some photo simulations kind of from street view. Believe me, I wanted to get a picture from the middle of the street, but there must have been shift change that day. I didn't want to get run over there. Those cars were flying. They're going about 50, 60 miles an hour. But there is photo simulations. Actually, the fence is back there. You see, the next slide maybe will show a little bit closer. But I think the point here being that this system is very visually transparent to just the passerby. This is not something that, it's just going to jump out and stick out. It's very visually transparent. The next few slides are very close-up photos, sample photos of actual installations. And again, this is just to show you what it is. That would probably be the best kind of comparison to what Central Coast Truck Center would be. Landscaping in front with wrought iron and then electrified security fence in the rear. That photo there, the perimeter fence, wrought iron, is 6 feet tall and the electrified security fence is 10 feet tall. So for this project, along the frontage for Central Coast Truck Center, basically it would be half of what's sticking up above the wrought iron fence, so it would be lower. Okay, and that should pretty much wrap up, my presentation. Certainly, I'm available for any questions.
Go back to the previous slide, please.
Okay.
How tall is this fence?
The electrified security fence is 10 feet tall, and the wrought iron fence is 6 feet tall, so it's 4 feet above.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Questions for the applicant? No? I do have one question. What about debris? Can debris set the, interrupt the current?
Debris, no. I mean, well, like what kind of debris? Like just,
Well, we have heavy winds. I mean, we had horrible winds in the last 24 hours. You know, what if it picked up, I don't know, paper, a tumbleweed, you know, anything along that line?
no. I mean, things obviously that are, like that are they're non-conductive.
Okay.
There won't be any interference. Also keep in mind too, I didn't go into this kind of level of detail, but with the installation of this system is maintained on an ongoing basis by our technicians who live locally. And they would come out and respond to any, technical issues or false alarms or whatever the case may be, as well as they come out just on a scheduled basis to make sure that the system is operating properly, as well as even remove any potential debris.
Okay.
I do have a question about the height. Since that one is 6, why do you need the electric fence to be 10, being that you already have the alarm system, the detection entry, the monitors, the electric charge? What is the other 4 feet going to add to this?
Well, it's a psychological battle. I mean, if you look, the best way to think about it is in the scenario on the left. If you have 2 fences that are next to each other the same height, basically the exterior fence is just a nice perch to hop over the electrified security fence. If there's additional height to the electrified security fence, now, if they even think about getting to the top of the wrought iron fence, now they have another additional height to contend with, which has the shock component. And that's
Right.
where the criminals don't try. They don't want to even attempt it.
Right, but why can't it be 8? Why does it have to be the 4 feet?
Well, that is what we're proposing along the frontage, but certainly experience has shown that that 10-foot height is the optimal from a security perspective. And again, just also considering the average height of the human being. There's a lot of things that went into consideration here, and that is the industry standard, also kind of set by the IEC as well, that 10-foot height is what is going to provide the protection necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? No? No? Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the public? Or anybody? Yes?
I just wanted to clarify, I think Commissioner Hernandez had it right, but the 8 feet is proposed here and then 10 feet around the perimeter. Just wanted
Right.
to reiterate.
Right, I'm just wondering, why don't we keep it 8 even?
And Chair and members of the commission, one thing I'd also like to note is that initially the applicant did come to us with 10 feet along the frontage, but for working with the applicant regarding aesthetics, the appearance of this new facility, the applicant has agreed to lower the front to 8, but their initial preference was also to have 10 along that street frontage.
Okay.
All right. Is there any written communications or public's comments from Zoom? Dana, Frank, Carol?
No written communication.
Okay.
And there are no attendees wishing to comment.
Okay. Thank you very much, Frank. Okay. Any final questions for the applicants before we bring it back? No? All right. Then I will go ahead and bring it back to the commission for any comments, or we're going to need a motion. So there we go. Comments?
Yes, I have a comment. I think it'd be best to have it be even for aesthetics and just to be 8 across the entire area would make sense. I understand what the applicant is pointing out, but I think they do have all the other features that help the people who are trying to get in, deter them. That's the only comment I have.
Thank you very much. Other comments?
Mr.
Commissioner?
Chairman? Yes. Frank, ABC Building Supply on Depot and, what street is that, Smith? They have a pretty high fence. Is that 10 feet, or is that, any idea, 8 or 10 feet?
Chair, members of the commission, I apologize, I'm not familiar with that location.
Okay. And the reason I ask is it was very noticeable when I passed by there. I could see 8 at the front. 10, it's a little bit more concealed back there. I know there's railroad tracks back there. A while back, there was something about a trail back there. I don't know if you guys remember that. There was a part of the circulation plan, bike path. Did that ever get resolved? Because I remember there was,
Commissioner Lopez, that trail is on the south side of the railroad tracks.
right, but I remember there was some, whether or not it had to go between the railroad right-of-way and adjacent to the property. I know this fence is behind that property, or at least it's behind the wrought iron fence on that south side. But there was, I don't know if it ever got resolved, but there was something about the trail being outside of the railroad's right-of-way and adjacent to that fence. I don't know if there was any consideration of how that would look adjacent to that trail if it ever comes to fruition.
I believe the trail is on the south side of the railroad tracks.
Oh, okay,
even, so
gotcha.
it's on the other property, so
Okay.
it wouldn't be adjacent to this property.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Chair Dickerson, Commissioner Lopez,
Yes, ma'am.
the ABC fence that you were asking about, is that on Boone Street? Is that the location? That fence was approved at 10 feet high. So this one would be 2 feet lower on the frontage. Just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that it seems like, to me, pretty reasonable to have it just 8 feet in the front and 10 on the rest of the perimeter, because you probably, I don't know what the thieves had done already, but it makes sense that they would be approaching from the back or the sides, not the front, so that makes a lot of sense to me. So I think it's a good compromise, makes sense. So that's it, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Okay. We need a motion with discussion of 8 or 10 feet, depending on who makes the motion.
Well, do we have consensus so that we can have a motion? Because there's only 4 of us. So.
Yeah, for me, I think I agree with the other commissioners that the 8 feet and then the 10 feet in the back is probably reasonable for security purposes. Plus, it's back there, and I'm not sure that it's terribly visible, so I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I move that we approve Central Coast Truck Center electrical fence conditional use permit at 1400 West Stowell Road.
We need a second.
I'll second that.
Kathleen, can I have a roll call for this motion?
Commissioner Hernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez,
Aye.
Chair Dickerson.
Aye. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Oh, thank God we're going to get our legal back. I was really sweating it. It was my palms, I tell you. I know. Yeah, we did. It's a hard bench, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. You seem like a cardio person. Yeah, that's right. We'll let the folks exit. All right, let's go on to item number 2, continued item, Composite Plastic Systems, Inc., conditional use permit at 701 Arctic Avenue. Cody, looks like you're up.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chair Dickerson. Good evening. My name is Cody Grabel. I'm an associate planner with the city, and tonight I'll be presenting the Composite Plastic Systems project proposing to permit an existing cell tower concealment production facility at 701 Arctic Avenue. As mentioned, this item has been continued from the February 16th hearing to tonight with direction from the Planning Commission for staff to return with findings to deny the project. This project was presented in detail at the last hearing in February, and Just for a little bit of background, the project's located near the center of the city, and it's between East Boone Street and East Park Avenue to the north and south, and South College Drive and South Miller Street to the east and west. And this area contains a wide range of land uses, including residential development to the north and to the west and to the east. Hancock Terrace Apartments is immediately adjacent to the project site. And there also is industrial development to the south of the project site. And then we have public facility developments with Hancock College to the southwest. So this project site is located in an existing multi-tenant industrial building, and the business creates wireless concealment facilities for cell service sites in the form of fake trees and water towers. Work includes assembly of pre-made parts, cosmetic improvements, and welding. And the existing business currently spans 4 different areas. Area 1 is the location of the fabrication shop, and areas 2, 3, and 4 are the outdoor storage locations. And the remaining 5 buildings, as well as the parking areas on the site, are not a part of this project. So the project's been agendized twice prior to tonight. The first hearing was on December 15th, and commissioners mentioned the following comments and concerns about the project. The first was inconsistency with the character of the residential neighborhood, and then the second was the aesthetic impacts that would be experienced upon neighboring residential properties from unsightly outdoor storage. And the item was continued to February 16th with the request for staff to return with more information about other uses on the property. So at the hearing on the 16th, staff summarized the existing uses at the site and their conformity to the downtown plan. And then the commissioners reiterated their concerns from the first hearing and moved to deny the project, directing staff to return with findings and a resolution for denial. So staff has prepared a resolution with findings to deny the project, which are included in the staff report. And the findings for denial are based on the following 3 items. The first being that the project does not meet the vision, intent, and requirements of the general plan, specifically because the general plan land use element identifies industrial operations immediately adjacent to residential neighborhoods as an example of a significant land use conflict, and also that the project would have adverse effects upon abutting property, which include noise, dust, fumes, potential traffic issues, and also aesthetic visual impacts. So the specific project operations that generate these effects include frequent welding that requires the use of flammable compressed gases, the use of adhesives, paints, and plasters for the assembly of the fake cellular towers, as well as frequent truck trips to and from the site, and from the outdoor storage of industrial materials. And also, the third finding is that the project, under the circumstances of this particular case, being detrimental to the health and safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood and being inconsistent with the character of the neighborhood and contrary to its orderly development. And the project is inconsistent with the character of the neighborhood and contrary to its orderly development because of the outdoor storage associated with metal tower sections, the storage of the fake tree sections, and other industrial materials used in the business operation stored outdoors. These storage areas are visible from Boone Street and the surrounding residential properties, including the upper floors of the Hancock Terrace Apartments. And the full details of the findings of denial are within the resolution included in the staff report. So in conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission, by resolution, deny conditional use permit U 2021-0004. Staff is now available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cody. Before we go into questions for staff, we need disclosure by any commissioners with the applicant? No? All right. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for staff?
No.
No? No questions? All right. Thank you very much. Is the applicant available? No? All right. How about written communications, public comment? Anybody in the Zoom world?
We did not receive any written communications, verbal communications, and there are no attendees on the Zoom meeting.
Okay. One final thing for any questions? No? Then we'll bring it back. Public hearing is closed, and we will, for discussions, and we'll need a resolution for denial. Does anyone have anything they wish to say or present a resolution?
I can present the resolution.
Okay.
I move that by resolution, we deny conditional use permit U 2021-0004, Composite Plastic Systems, Inc., at 701 Arctic Avenue.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Kathleen, you're up.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco.
Aye.
Chair Dickerson.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay. Number 3, ooh, this sounds scintillating. It's always good to end on an upbeat note on these meetings. Annual technical amendments to the zoning ordinance. Frank, you lucky devil, you got the short straw.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. These are technical ordinance amendments. The technical ordinance amendments are something that happen annually, led primarily by the city attorney's office. It's an annual review of the entire Santa Maria Municipal Code. They are technical in that they are intended to clarify existing provisions, correct inconsistencies, and also better align the code with recent minor changes in state law. As I say, the entire code is reviewed. However, the Planning Commission has purview and is intended to advise the City Council regarding those proposed amendments to Title 12, which is the zoning code. So there are 3 technical amendments to Title 12 with this proposal. First is in regards to undergrounding utilities. These provisions are regarding sites that are being developed. This section about undergrounding utilities had been part of Chapter 9 of the Municipal Code, which is the building code, and those were removed, and this action will place them in the zoning code, which is Chapter 12. The second item is in regards to density bonus. Chapter 12 has a density bonus section, and it was found to be inconsistent with state law in that there was some language in the city's density bonus code that erroneously implied that density bonus was available for developments with less than 5 units. And so we're removing that language to make it consistent with state code. And lastly, there have been recent changes in the accessory dwelling units law where the state has now created provisions where ADUs, under very limited situations having to do with affordability and maintaining affordability over future years and so forth, have introduced provisions where those ADUs can be sold or conveyed separately from the primary residence. So this is merely to update our ADU section to acknowledge the state direction. And those are the 3. If the commission has any questions regarding those, I have slides with the full text of these ordinance amendments. However, at this point in time, I'm going to conclude my presentation by recommending the Planning Commission by resolution recommend to the City Council approval of these zoning text amendments to Title 12.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
Questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Heather, did you have any comments? No? Okay. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Frank, I had a question on the first one with respect to requiring new building construction to underground utilities. In the past, I think the building department has allowed some leeway. Are we saying brand-new, empty, vacant lot? Okay.
Primarily, that would be, and I believe there's some provisions about the percentage of improvements being done, triggering site improvements. It would fall under those existing regulations. This is also repeated in the Subdivision Map Act, and it's our Title 12 is our mapping ordinance. However, in those provisions, it clearly states that the property has to be a part of a subdivision being developed.
Okay.
So we have many vacant sites in the city where street improvements have not been done or utilities have not been undergrounded. Those vacant sites are not part of a subdivision, and since it's removal from the building code, we don't have the authority right now to require those major developments to underground their utilities if they're not part of a subdivision map, or if the map had occurred much earlier in time and didn't include provisions for the undergrounding.
So not necessarily an addition where, say, this existing home has an aerial mass with aerial service to it, you're removing it and placing it on the appendage or whatever new addition is, where you could, at the building department's discretion, they typically allow you to have overhead aerial service to a relocated service meter and mast. Is that?
I do not believe those kinds of situations would trigger this requirement. It's primarily the vacant properties with no development, maps from ages ago, or a parcel created some other way. And this would be the only method for the city to have the related utilities placed underground.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions of staff? Frank, in a couple of questions, the first about the ADUs. Can you expand on that?
Yes.
When can an ADU be sold separately from the rest of the lot?
Let me get to the slide.
I did have to go there. It's an abomination.
Yes.
Chair Dickerson, I have the language from the state law that I
lucky
can
us.
read to you. So it states, affordability restrictions on the sale and conveyance of the ADU or primary dwelling that ensure that the ADU and primary dwelling will be preserved for low-income housing for 45 years, for owner-occupied housing units, and will be sold or resold to a qualified buyer. So as Frank mentioned, it has to do with affordability, and Frank may want to expand more on that.
And there would be provisions and covenants involved, restrictions similar to an affordable housing development that's getting tax credits or other state or federal funding. There's limitations on who the property can be transferred to, how long it has to be held at an affordable level. So it's fairly restrictive in terms of a separate sale.
So if somebody were to build an ADU on top of a garage, a freestanding garage on the property, and then would they be allowed to sell this, either the garage or the second story of the garage, the ADU portion?
Under these provisions, it would have to be meeting those affordability requirements and the.
But assuming it did.
Yes.
Oh, Heather, let's hear from you.
Thank you. There's one other piece that I don't believe I heard was it only applies when the dwelling is built or developed by a qualified nonprofit. So it has to be a qualified nonprofit who builds the ADU. Then if it's sold to a income qualified, low-income buyer, and then all the provisions about it remaining low income, restrictive covenants that the planning staff has talked about come into play. It does sound like an odd thing. How would you sell separately that piece? But I think the easiest way is to think about with condominium ownership, That's another example where 2 units might be owned by different people. And in the covenants, you would have all that stuff worked out as far as common areas and the different units. And as Mr. Albro said, it's state law, so it
Oh, I
doesn't
get
matter
that.
really whether we agree or disagree or what. All we're doing is modifying our ordinance so that it says whatever's required under state law, you can do.
Sure, I get that.
And we're not, nothing broader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Heather, who or what is the definition of a qualified nonprofit?
I'm not sure if I have that here, I might.
Some guy named Phil down the block.
Last name Cinco.
Yeah, I don't know that I can, I'll keep looking. If I find the definition, I'll jump back in. I don't have it off the top of my
Okay,
head.
and then, sorry, I don't want to belabor this, but what is the definition for the first item, what's new building construction? I know Frank kind of touched on it, but is there a specific definition in our municipal code that says new building construction and what that
You're talking
actually
about
is?
now about the undergrounding?
No, I'm talking, yes.
Okay, so the undergrounding, we are just reinstating what the rules we previously had that got deleted from Title IX.
Okay.
So in reading that section, it exempts single-family residents or duplex residents proposed to be constructed on existing lots within a subdivision with existing utility lines that are installed above ground. Those are exempted.
Okay.
They were then, they aren't, they will be going forward. Was that
Okay.
your question?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Further questions? Heather, just as a matter of curiosity on my part, do we have to vote for these as a bundle, or can a commissioner ask to peel them off separately, or peel one off and have separate votes for each one?
So it's a recommendation to the council, and I think if you could come up with a consensus among you, you could vote to recommend one and not another. And again, though, looking through them, the utility one,
I know, they're the law.
we just kind of inadvertently deleted and want to put now in 12. The ADU one is state law. We cannot say you can't have separate ownership if you meet the requirements of the state law. And the density bonus, we are trying to be consistent with state law, which says density bonus for 5 units or more only. So,
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, apparently we are going to need a resolution. Does somebody wish to present that? Yeah.
So I was able to find that qualified nonprofit means a nonprofit corporation organized pursuant to Section 501C. So, any nonprofit. So I can make a motion, or is it resolution?
It's a resolution.
Resolution that we approve SMCC 12-2806, SMMC 12-48.03, and SMMC 1256.04.
Thank you. We have a second.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Kathleen?
Commissioner Hernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez,
Aye.
Commissioner Blanco,
Aye.
Chair Dickerson.
I'll abstain.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure we approved the zoning text amendments. I don't, on what
Yes.
I'm looking at,
Yeah.
I don't.
All three.
All three.
I just didn't have those references that you had.
Oh, they're in the staff report. the
Oh, from
numbers.
there. Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Moving on, oral reports from planning commissioners and/or staff. Why don't we start with staff?
Great, thank you so much. This is Dana Eady, planning manager. I was just going to discuss our upcoming hearing schedule. So we have a study session scheduled for tomorrow, April 7th at 1:30 in the Community Development Department conference room. And we're going to be going over the pre-application for the Vlasser Ranch project at that meeting. That's the only item that we have tomorrow. And then upcoming hearings as well, there's a April 20th hearing as well as April 21st. I will be absent at those meetings, so Mr. Albro will be filling in my absence. And that concludes staff's update for tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything from commissioners? Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to know what it would take to have our study sessions back at Shepherd Hall. Being in the conference room last time, I remembered why it wasn't as nice to be there as it is over here at Shepherd Hall. You got that pole in the middle, you have the lights that are glaring down on the TV that you, from the angle I'm at, you can't see. And is there a way we could make it back at
You
Shepherd
don't
Hall?
like that sense of bureaucracy and that stifling fluorescent lighting?
Yeah, I just like that.
What do you think? Is that something we could do?
Commissioners, yes, we can look at doing that. The Planning Commission's bylaws currently state that the meetings are held, the study sessions are held in that room. So what we would need to do is just change that, bring it back to you and change that so that it has flexibility written into it as to where we can hold the meetings. And so I can do that. I can bring that back. Because I agree, I think that room is larger. It did work out well when we had the study sessions there. Just a little more space for when we have projects where we have a lot of community interest. I think the meeting tomorrow will be another crowded room. So I'll work to get that back to you, your commission soon, as soon as possible.
Okay, nice idea. Good. Heather?
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, staff will bring back an item for you to consider to amend the bylaws, which will include the relocation to Shepherd Hall. I think there might even be one or two cleanups in there that we'd like to take the opportunity to do as well in those bylaws. So we'll take a look at them and clean them up a little bit and insert some language about switching to Shepherd Hall, and then you guys can consider that when it's brought forward.
Okay. And if
Thank
possible,
you.
I'd like to confer with you on what those other items are before we bring them over. So
Sure.
you and I should get together on that.
That'd be great.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Kathleen?
No.
No? We're done.